podcast of Basketball Love. It is Thursday, November 3rd, and I am your host, Josh Verlin. We're back for another one of our one-on-one interviews, joined by a very special guest today, Towson men's basketball head coach Pat Skerry. Pat, thank you so much for taking some time to sit down with us this morning.
It's great to see you, Josh, and I really appreciate you having me on.
And now I know some people who might be watching this and be like, wait a second, Towson isn't moving to Philadelphia, is it? And I know that's not the case, but I'll explain why we're going to have you on here in just a second. I do first want to thank our sponsor. Today's podcast is brought to you by Competitive Edge Sports, conveniently located in King of Prussia, just minutes from 76 in the King of Prussia Mall. Competitive Edge's 5-court state-of-the-art facility is great for basketball, volleyball, futsal, and sports performance. Learn more at cesports.net. So, Pat, as I mentioned, you're head coach at Towson down there in Maryland, and I just wanted to explain to our viewers maybe why you're on the podcast today. Caleb Koopa, who's the director of basketball operations at Towson, was the assistant coach at Westtown for quite a few years prior to this, reached out to me, asked if I'd like to have you on the podcast. You guys have quite a few local connections in terms of opponents, players, background, history, league, and I was like, you know what? Yeah, we'd love to have Pat on. One of my favorite guys in college basketball. So I really appreciate you coming up to Philly for the morning and taking some time to talk with us.
Well, Philly's got great people, players, coaches, and programs. So anytime Towson can dip into Philadelphia, we are excited to do so.
Now, for those who don't know, Pat's been the head coach at Towson. That's your 12th season down there in Maryland. You've had a long college career. It's taken you from CAA, Atlantic 10. You've spent some time at Pittsburgh. You've been all over the place, but a lot of your jobs have had you in proximity to Philadelphia. So I was curious, Massachusetts boy growing up, what was your sort of first exposure to what Philadelphia basketball is? And do you have a good, Philadelphia basketball recruiting story or something as you were getting used to what this city's scene is like?
Well, I mean, I grew up obviously admiring and despising the 76ers because of the old Boston Celtic rivalries. Not obviously Dr. J, he's a UMass Amherst guy, but Darryl Dawkins, I'm going to give you one. He used to destroy us. Andrew Toney, they called him the Boston Strangler. That was his nickname up here. Maurice Cheeks, Bobby Jones, so just great sports teams and Philadelphia, obviously, passionate fan base. A few years ago, we were up getting ready to play Drexel, Josh, and it was the Eagles Super Bowl parade, and which one was really disappointing because I'm a big Patriots fan, So
you guys have had enough of your own.
Well, first thing that day, we had a really good guard from Newman Goretti, Zane Martin. He was a sophomore for us. He came to my room and said, "Coach, I got to go to this parade." And I was like, "No, absolutely not. We got a game tonight." And so we had to make sure he didn't go to the parade. He's a huge Eagles guy. We're on our way to play Drexel, and our director of operations at the time told the driver, "Do not take this exit. All right, we've already taught you. We got to take this next exit." As we get up to the exit that we're not supposed to take, the driver's like, "This is the one I already take." He took it, and we got gridlocked with the Eagles fans from the parade. I mean, we were there for 50 minutes. Now I'm getting nervous. We called Drexel. They're like, the game's at 7. Finally, our staff says, "Hey, Coach, we're 0.8 of a mile from the DAC. It wouldn't take that long to get there." So we went through the Eagles parade with some snowbanks, everything, carrying everything, our equipment, our gear. We got everything in there about 2 minutes before game time. And we're down big early, and we're fortunate to come back and win. But that's probably as good of a memory as I've had being up in Philly, other than having to absorb the Eagles victory parade.
You were an assistant coach in Northeastern, William and Mary, Charleston. Do you remember who was the first Philadelphia kid that you recruited at any one of those stops?
Yeah, the first real was terrific player and talent from Newman Goretti, Jamal Wilson. Guy could just get buckets. He's just a prolific scorer. And I think he still might have like the URI single game scoring record. So a great talent.
So as I mentioned at the top of the podcast, there's several reasons that I wanted to have you on today with sort of connections to Philadelphia. The first one is you guys already have played a Big Five opponent this year. You had an exhibition game, came up to Philly, played St. Joe's, really, close game. St. Joe's pulled it out, but I was just, wanted to get you on for an opposing coach's thoughts on the Hawks, because it's been an interesting story with them since, Phil Martelli was let go 4 years ago. Billy Lang's come in and hasn't yet gotten the momentum that he wanted to, but it seems like he's more optimistic about this group than he has been about the last few that he's had. From the opposing sideline, what did you see from the Hawks last weekend, and what stood out to you most about them?
Well, I think St. Joe's fans and supporters should be excited about the Hawks. I thought they were good. First, I thought they were extremely organized. I thought they were more connected than us. I thought they played with more energy than us, and that's why they came back and won. Their guards are very, very dynamic. Obviously, Reynolds we knew about, but Greer and Winborn are terrific. So the first thing that jumped out to me was that the guards' speed and one-on-one ability that they've recruited at a very high level. The second thing is they are really long. They got multiple 5 men who can play a role. And then I like the 2 4-men, the kid Casper and then Fleming. I think those guys are going to be good players. They did some things, obviously it wasn't a heavy preparation game for us. For us, we thought this is a great opportunity to play a very good team on the road, kind of like we would face versus a Charleston or Wilmington, down the stretch of the season. So I thought they did a good job with zone pressure. And like I said, I thought Billy did a great job coaching. I thought they certainly outcoached us and played harder than us. So we were up 16 points early, and then up 10 with 10 to go. And St. Joe's was much more hungry and I thought connected. So I would think bodes well. I think people got to be patient. I think their young talent level is very good.
Christian Winborn, freshman at St. Joe's, as a kid from your area. Is he someone you were familiar with and got to see a bunch of during the high school, AAU landscape?
Yeah, we had, but they did a great job getting on him early and getting that done early. He's a high-level guy. He was the difference in the game late. He made 2 guarded, difficult threes late, contested shots. And they've got the ability. They play pretty fast. They a lot of ball screen actions, but good ball screen actions, excellent spacing. And I think guys play with great confidence. So I left there with a lot of respect for the job that Billy and his staff were doing. And really the whole administration, Rob Sullivan, and they did a really good job just with the whole game and the clinic beforehand and the setup. So I do think it's something that's going to benefit us and hopefully them throughout the course of the season.
One other thing I wanted to touch on, actually 2 other things I wanted to touch on, but one from the basketball side. You've certainly shown what it takes to rebuild a program. For those who don't know, your first year at Towson, Tigers won just 1 game. You've had, maybe the rebuilding project of all rebuilding projects over the last decade. New arena, new team, new program. And over those 12 years, last year you guys won 25 games. Best team in your Towson tenure, picked to win the CAA this year. So as someone who's been through that, to start at the bottom and have to build that program almost literally from the ground up, what are the most important parts to getting some momentum? How do you turn that 1-win season into a winning program?
Well, I think for us, I was very fortunate. If we don't get a guy by the name of Jarrell Benjamin, I'm not here, probably selling encyclopedias. And the AD that hired me initially, I'm on my 4th AD and they've all been good, but the AD that hired me initially, Mike Waddell, he really, I feel like gave more support to the program than any of the other coaches before me, so he really helped with strength and conditioning and how we're feeding the guys and all that stuff. So with that said, I think there's 2 things. One, you got to get some talent, right? Talent is a baseline. We go from 1 win to 18 wins, and we had the exact same practice and ran the exact same stuff. The result was just a little bit better when guys shot the ball in here too. And then two, what we did learn the first year, I think that has helped us, try to be competitive year in, year out, is we try to form habits. And we try to form those habits by dominating the guys' days with the routine. And just trying to really, I've always had really good staff, Josh, that invests in our guys and really try to get our guys better. I don't think the guys I've had here that have gotten enough credit for how much better they've been able to get our student athletes.
The other thing I wanted to mention from the St. Joe's game, the reason that it was able to be a Division I versus Division I exhibition, obviously it has to be for charity. St. Joseph's, it was, and the Tigers agreed to play this game for charity to benefit the St. Joseph's autism facility that they have there. Autism obviously has been a huge part of your charitable support over the years. I know it's something that is personal to you, family with autism, son with autism. So it's been something that's been very personal to you. And I think you've been the coach at the forefront of how coaches can support, autism awareness and support. What does it mean to you to be that face? Because I know plenty of people ask what it means to you to support autism, but what does it mean to you to be the coach that now when people think of college basketball and autism awareness and support, you're the guy that they think of? What does that mean?
Well, yeah, first, St. Joe's has a Kinney Center for Autism on campus, and they do an unbelievable job. Their students work at it. So what they're doing at their university, I was just really impressed with, and it means a lot to being a parent of a child with autism. We've tried to raise some awareness. I don't want to take a lot of credit for that. I think it's just we just had a creative idea, but it is the world's largest or proficiency rates developmental disorder. And the whole impetus behind it, Josh, is really it costs the average family, roughly $50,000 a year to get the correct services. And it just, it's heartbreaking because, I think of a lot of families that probably aren't able to get that. So that was really the reason behind it. And now we got to figure out how to make it better. It's like coaching a team. I think it's been a good start, and now we got to figure out how to make it better. And I'm certainly going to need some help with that. I'm certainly not intelligent or creative enough to do that, but I appreciate you talking about it. And I try to wear the pin because usually every game, a couple of people ask about it. And although over the course of the last few years, it's been interesting and exciting to see that more people are aware of it.
I was going to say now it's been at least 7 or 8 years probably that you've been championing this cause.
A good decade, I'm not getting any younger. It's been a good decade.
Yeah. So you hinted this, but yeah, how has the perception of what you're trying to do changed over that time?
Well, I think just almost anyone today, right, has someone they know or in the family that it deals with autism. And I always say, if you know one person with autism, you know one person with autism. Everyone is different, and there's different kind of philosophies or theories on that. I just think for us as a family, it was nice the other day, and my family came up, was that St. Joe's really made a great effort to give a lot of families a typical experience that maybe they don't always get. They lowered the sound and the lighting a little bit, and it was very user friendly. So that's the piece that you just want people to have a little bit more empathy for what maybe what a mom's going through if she's with her son at the supermarket and there's there's some unusual behaviors, like not to be judgmental. It's hard sometimes to be in those shoes. And then for me, Josh, it's always like as a parent, the hardest piece is for any parent is you think a lot about when you're gone, what's going to happen to your children. I think for a parent, someone on the autism spectrum, or really with any disability or difference, I think that anxiety or worry gets heightened.
Well, I like you mentioned, we all know somebody with autism. I have a family member that has fairly significant disabilities, and I just wanted to say thank you for what you do for that, because it's important. And there's, like you said, so many different ways that autism can affect people and impact their lives. And the more that we can raise awareness and funds to help people, the better. And so thank you for that. Let's talk some hoops. This is not a Towson basketball preview show, but you do have a team with some high expectations this year, picked first in the CAA. What changes about the season when you're going into it with that target on your back?
Yeah, I think one thing I saw our players after St. Joe's was gassed up after they got us the other day, and told our guys afterwards, like, I got to do a better job coaching, and we've got to have a heightened sense of execution and connectivity, because that's what it's going to look like every night this year. I guess the good thing is I have such great respect for St. Joe's, dating back to what Coach Martelli did there. I did take a little bit of appreciation. That program's come a long way, where we're considered a very good victory. So that makes you feel a little bit better. But look, at our guys want to have the best year we've ever had and go someplace we've never been, and that's awesome. And I'm aware of what they consume with the media, but it doesn't change that. We've just got to try to be consistent every day and build those habits so that we have those opportunities. And I believe we will. But I do think that hopefully we got a little bit of a lesson the other day.
You've had a Philadelphia presence on your team almost throughout your years at Towson. You mentioned Zane Martin. Alan Bertrand was down there. Right now, Rahdir Hicks, sophomore guard out of Malvern Prep, was a key reserve for you guys last year. Before we talk about expectations for him as a sophomore, what did you see in him as a high schooler at Malvern Prep that made you think, okay, he's a Tiger, and he's someone that we want to make a priority?
Yeah, and we also had one of my, if not my favorite player of all time here, was Johnny Davis, another Newman Goretti guy.
Of course. I didn't want to go back too far, but absolutely.
No, that's my guy. But we've had Alan, who was a great player, and Zane, and yeah, I mean, like, first of all, Rahdir comes from a great family, intelligent kid, and a great teammate. It was during COVID, so when we saw him on film, I think he's the best ball pressure guy we've ever had, and he's a true quarterback, and well coached at Malvern and playing for the Great Philly Pride program. So that he had all the intangibles that you'd want for. And we are excited about him this year. He got a concussion, so he's been back now for a little over a week. We got to try to get his rhythm back, because he's going to be key for us. I thought for his game, he struggled a little bit the other day, but he was playing great before that. So there's no reason to think that we won't get him back to where he's been. He's really worked on his shot. He's put on 16, 17 pounds of muscle, so he looks noticeably different. And he did have a lot of valuable game experience last year. He played about 11 minutes a game, Josh. And early, he played more. And then he had a respiratory issue, and we had to shut him down for about 10 games and run a bunch of tests, and everything's fine, thank goodness. And but early in the year, he had to play a lot because we had some other injuries. And out at New Mexico, he did a great job on their guards, and played against Penn, and he guarded the kid Bouye from San Francisco. So he's a guy I think that we have really we trust him.
Expectation. I mean, Jason Gibson comes back at point guard for you guys for one more year. So the expectation for Rahdir, another sort of sixth man year for him, and reserve minutes, and then maybe.
Yeah, or honestly, before the concussion, he was starting, so he could be back in the starting. He'll be in the, we'll play him and Gibson together, because Gibson's an excellent shooter. He's very comfortable playing off the ball. But the other pieces we're going to need, we're really going to need Rahdir against the elite guards in our league, the Jameer Nelson Juniors, the Aaron Estradas, that's. So Rahdir's a guy I would expect to finish a lot of games for us.
It's perfect. Then you mentioned two local kids, in Jameer Nelson Jr. and Aaron Estrada, South Jersey kid, and Jameer from the Haverford School. Obviously, two other terrific talents in this league. When you look around the rest of the CAA, what teams do give you the most worry?
Well, no, there's no question. I think Delaware will be very good. they won the conference championship. They bumped us out. I think Northeastern will be back. Hofstra with the starter. I'm high on Charleston. I still think Wilmington, and then Drexel probably is the best post guy in the league. I don't know enough about the newer teams, but I feel like there's going to be a handful of teams that are going to be incredibly difficult to beat. Most of them are the mainstays, and then you get your Charleston and Wilmingtons down south.
Yeah, perfect segue into my next question. The CAA has changed quite a bit since you've gotten to Towson. With VCU, Old Dominion, Georgia State departed in that 2013 swap, and now Elon, Charleston, and the rest came in. Now this year we got Hampton, NC-A&T, Stony Brook, and who am I missing? Monmouth joined the league. So totally new look CAA. How do you feel about that? Obviously, it's good that the league is growing, but when you have all these new programs that you don't know what to expect, you don't know what you're going to see on the court. Is that a fun challenge? Is that a little bit nerve wracking? How does that feel as a coach?
Yeah, I mean, I get why we've expanded, and I'm part of those decisions, so I get it. I always know Stony Brook and Monmouth, I believe, have CAA facilities and budgets, so they've operated that way for a while. So I'm sure they'll be very good right away. I don't know enough about Hampton and A&T. I haven't been on those campuses. We did play Hampton home last year. The thing you don't like about it is we used to just play everyone twice, a true round robin. So that was unique. So now you're going to have that unbalanced scheduling. And I think right now, my hope is we just stay one conference. We don't go to divisions. To be quite honestly, the North is stronger than the South. So that's why I would think that somewhat would be unfair as we sit today. So hopefully, the powers that be recognize that.
Drexel, you mentioned one of the best postmen in the league in Amari Williams, and then a whole bunch of new pieces under Zach Spiker. As you've seen Spiker's program now over the last 7 years, what are your thoughts on the job he's done here in Philadelphia?
Well, I think he's done a very good job. Drexel can be a challenging job when you don't have the same tradition as some of those other, really tradition-laden Big Five programs. Zach's become a friend. They're a terrific offensive coach. They're really, really hard to guard. We spend the most time trying to prep for their offense of any team in the league. Amari Williams is a pro, and I think people are really sleeping on those guys that they return. All are lengthy guys that can shoot in Washington and Oakris and Lamar Odom. So you got guys that have quality winning experience. We lost last year up at Drexel in a tough game, so that's always a difficult place to play.
Speaking of Philadelphia teams, you open your season on Monday against Albany, but less than a week after that, you're coming up here to Philadelphia. You're playing Penn. You saw the Quakers last season, so it's not a program you're unfamiliar with. What are the challenges? I know you're third game of the season, so maybe it's not the one that you're focused on the most, but I'm hoping you remember a bit from last year. What are the challenges in playing the Steve Donahue coach program?
Well, great respect for Steve back, following his success at Cornell, and then obviously being a Boston guy. When he was at Boston College, I was trying to work it to get on his staff back then. I just wasn't able to do it. So one, they picked to win the Ivy League. We're playing in the Palestra. I've never played there, so I'm really excited about that. I think a couple things jump out at Penn. Obviously, other than that, they're picked first is. An elite offensive team, an offensive system. I've spent time with Steve a couple of years back, going through some offensive stuff. So that they're really hard to guard. We try to pride ourselves on defense. I'm not sure how you guard them. And then the Dingle kid's a pro, so that's a challenge. He's a guy that can score at all three levels, and they've got really good, I think, size across the board. So it'll be tough. We were fortunate last year that the schedule, the timing of when we played them favored them. So our guys will be keenly aware that, we have to play at a high level. I think if you study, both us and Penn have incredibly challenging non-conference schedules.
You mentioned, having never played at the Palestra before. Do you remember how old you were when you started to learn about the Palestra and when it became a destination for you?
So I used to hear a lot about when I was in college, worked out a lot, became a good friend. He's not now deceased, but one of the all-time great Penn players was a guy named Bob Bigelow, who ended up playing in the NBA and with the Celtics. So he used to work me out in college. And Bob's was a dear friend, and his wife Nancy. And so I used to hear a lot about the pen and the Palestra. So I have great respect and reverence for it.
Have you ever been to the building just to see it, or
I have been in the building with some of the high school stuff, but I haven't had a chance to have a coach there. So I'm excited about that.
Was that part of when you schedule the home and home with Penn? Like, is that an impetus for it, or is it just quality program, Steve, and let's get that done?
Yeah, quality program, chance to be in Philly, and then I think they were wearing us out. A lot of people wearing us out. We had a tough year over COVID. I think everyone wanted to play us back then.
In terms of recruiting Philadelphia, and this is, one of those topics that gets debated all the time amongst, Big Five fans, right? Should the local teams be recruiting Philadelphia more often? And so many of the players come from New York and from DC. And I've always been a proponent of, I think it makes sense that kids for the most part, aren't going to want to go to college right in their backyard. So as someone who's, your school is 90, 100 minutes from Philadelphia, not super far, but far enough. What has been your reaction when you're, over the years, we're trying to recruit kids from Philadelphia? Do you find that you're really going up against the Big Five programs? Or do you think that that's an in that kids do want to get away, and therefore, not that it makes it easy for you, right? Because there's certainly a lot of competition for recruiting Philadelphia. But is that an advantage or a disadvantage to be sort of nearby but not?
Well, it has helped us. All the guys we've had from Philly have been really good players. I'd like more. We always try up there. I mean, you've got so many good high school and grassroots coaches. I kind of feel the other way, Josh, that it seems to me it's hard to get guys to leave Philly with all those good programs and schools. And once in a while, like every other year, it seems like we're able to get one because they do want to get out of Philly, just not that far away. But I almost feel like Philadelphia does the best job of any city, especially on the East Coast, of keeping their talent local. I'd like that to change. I'd like them to come a little bit further south. If we could make that happen, we would be very appreciative of that down here in Towson.
Well, Pat, I wanted to thank you again for coming on with us. I don't want to keep you too long. We're just, 4 days out now from the beginning of the regular season. You start off a home game against Albany. As I mentioned, you're traveling up to Penn next Sunday, playing Clemson. You got Navy, Northern Iowa, Fairfield, UNC Greensboro, all up and down the East Coast for your non-conference before CAA play begins in earnest right there at the end of December. Last question for you, just as these, final practices tick down, what's the biggest focus for your team in practice right now?
Yeah, being really good at stuff that we normally have been, transition defense, ability to get on the glass, sharing the ball, and then tightening up some situational stuff. We've spent a little bit more time on that because the hope is and belief is we're going to be in a lot of those type of situations. So hopefully our execution is where it needs to be. Ready or not, here we come.
It's hard to believe the season is here. Every year it feels the same way, but it's like, all right, preseason starts, we got plenty of time, and then all of a sudden you blink and it's November 3rd, and here we go.
Yeah, it's crazy. It is. We get to do this, though. That's the other, and we get to do this.
Pat Skerry, head coach, Towson men's basketball. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast of Basketball Love. It's been a pleasure. Looking forward to seeing you in Philly next weekend. Best of luck this season.
Thanks, Josh. Keep up the great work.